The storm outside the alien colony was endless, winds howling through metallic towers that glowed with blue lights. Inside the repair bay, a human soldier named Ethan Cole stood among broken machines and dusty air. He had been sent here as punishment, far from the core worlds, far from everything he once loved. Now he worked with aliens who barely spoke his language, creatures who moved with quiet grace and strange customs. But one of them stood out, a young alien girl with violet skin and long white hair tied in a braid that shimmered under the light. Her name was Lyra, and her eyes were covered with a dark cloth. Everyone said she was blind since birth, yet she walked with calm precision, her hands gliding across tools and panels like she could feel their shape through the air. Ethan watched her often, though not with kindness. To him, she was a reminder of weakness, fragile, slow, and strange. He didn't understand how someone who couldn't see could work in a place full of sharp metal and sparks. When she made small mistakes, he laughed. Once, when she dropped a wrench, his voice filled the bay, sharp and cruel. "Maybe if you opened your eyes, you'd see what you're doing," he said, smirking. The others froze. Even the machines seemed to go silent for a moment. Lyra turned her face toward the sound of his voice, her covered eyes lifting slightly. She didn't answer, didn't defend herself. She only tilted her head and whispered softly, "I can hear your anger." Her voice was gentle, almost musical. Ethan frowned, unsure what she meant. He walked away, pretending he didn't care, yet something about her words followed him through the night. Days passed, and Ethan tried to ignore her. But every time he entered the bay, she greeted him with a small nod and a quiet smile. It wasn't pity, it wasn't fear, it was kindness. A kindness that burned him like fire. He told himself she was just simple-minded, a naive creature who didn't understand sarcasm or cruelty. But deep down, he felt something stir, a discomfort he hadn't felt in years. One evening, while fixing a damaged drone, Lyra hummed a soft melody. It was haunting, peaceful, and somehow familiar. Ethan froze as the tune reached his ears. It sounded like an old earth lullaby his mother used to sing. He wanted to ask how she knew it, but pride kept his mouth shut. Instead, he pretended not to care and left early. Yet that night, the melody played again and again in his dreams. Then came the quake. Without warning, the ground trembled, lights flickered, and alarms screamed through the colony. Smoke burst from the vents, and the repair bay filled with chaos. Ethan rushed toward the noise, shouting orders, pulling workers to safety. Then he saw her, Lyra, trapped under fallen metal beams, her frail hands reaching out blindly through the dust. For a moment, he hesitated. He didn't know why. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, but then instinct took over. He ran forward, lifting the heavy debris with all his strength. "Hold on," he shouted. Her voice came weak but steady. "I knew you would come." Ethan froze, her words hitting deeper than any weapon could. "How could you know that?" he asked, his voice breaking as he dragged her free. She smiled faintly, her blindfold streaked with ash. "I could feel your heart," she whispered. "It beats louder when someone is afraid, but now it beats for something else." He stared at her, lost for words. How could she sense that? How could she know him? He carried her to safety as explosions echoed behind them. Outside, under the red glow of the alien sun, he laid her gently on the ground. Her breathing was weak, her skin glowing faintly like starlight. She whispered one last sentence before losing consciousness. "You will see soon what I already see." Ethan sat beside her, the dust settling around him. The soldier who once mocked a blind girl now felt like the one who couldn't see. For the first time in years, he felt something heavy inside his chest. Not anger, not duty, but shame mixed with something fragile, something new. And deep within that feeling, a voice whispered to him, maybe hers, maybe his own, that this was only the beginning. The colony was silent after the quake, the once busy corridors now filled with dust and flickering lights. Ethan sat beside Lyra in the infirmary, watching the medics attach small, glowing patches to her skin. She was still unconscious, her breathing slow but steady. Her blindfold had been removed for cleaning, and for the first time, Ethan saw her eyes. They were pale silver, almost transparent, reflecting the light like water. He had never seen anything like them, beautiful yet haunting. He told himself he was just curious, just making sure she would recover. But the truth was heavier. He couldn't stop thinking about what she had said before fainting. You will see soon what I already see. Those words echoed in his mind like a pulse, slow and steady, impossible to ignore. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard her humming that same soft tune. It wasn't coming from the hallway, nor from the speakers. It was inside his head. A calm, melodic whisper that carried peace and pain together. He sat up, sweating, his heart racing. Lyra, he whispered into the darkness, but no one answered. Still, the sound of her voice drifted in his thoughts. I can hear your fear again, Ethan, the voice said gently. He stood quickly, looking around the empty room. Where are you? Her voice came softer now. In your memory. The next morning, when he went to check on her, Lyra was awake, sitting quietly on the bed. Her blindfold was back, her face calm as ever. You came, she said, her lips curving into a small smile. Ethan crossed his arms, trying to hide the unease in his voice. You almost died. You should be resting. She tilted her head. You were worried. He wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in his throat. He had been worried, not out of duty, but something deeper, something he didn't understand yet. When he asked about the voice in his dreams, Lyra only smiled. You heard me because your heart was open for a moment, she said. When you saved me, our minds touched. Ethan frowned. That's not possible. Humans can't link minds. Not with other humans, she replied softly. But maybe with truth. Her words confused him, yet they carried a strange warmth. Every time she spoke, he felt as though her words wrapped around his anger and slowly pulled it apart. She was not like anyone he had met, blind to the world, but somehow seeing far beyond it. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan found reasons to visit her. Sometimes he brought tools or data pads, pretending it was work. Other times, he just sat quietly while she hummed or spoke about the stars she had never seen. She asked him to describe them, the color of a sunrise on Earth, the sound of rain. As he spoke, her face would light up like she could feel those moments through him. He began to realize that he had forgotten how to describe beauty, and she, a blind alien, was teaching him how to see again. But one evening, when the colony's sirens blared again, Ethan ran to the window and saw lights in the sky. Alien warships, unknown, massive, approaching fast. The defense systems powered up, alarms howled, and soldiers shouted orders. Lyra stood behind him, calm in the chaos. You're leaving to fight, she said. Yes, he replied, grabbing his rifle. It's my duty. She reached out and held his hand, her voice trembling. Don't let your eyes blind your soul again. He looked at her, unsure what she meant, but the fear in her tone stopped him. As the warships entered orbit, Ethan felt something strange again, her voice whispering inside his thoughts. I'll see through you, she said gently, and you'll see through me. A pulse of light flared outside, and the ground shook. The battle had begun. Ethan ran into the firestorm with her words echoing in his mind. He didn't know how or why, but he could feel her presence even miles away. Every time he was about to make a fatal move, her voice warned him softly. Left, she whispered, and he dodged a plasma beam. Duck, she said, and he avoided a blast. It was as if she was inside his mind, guiding his every step. By the time the smoke cleared, the attack had ended, the invaders retreating into the stars. Ethan stood among the ruins, his heart racing. He looked up, whispering, Lyra, are you there? Her voice came back, calm and fragile. I told you, Ethan, I can see through you now. And as he closed his eyes, he saw what she saw, not with sight, but with something greater, a vision of the universe glowing with threads of life, every heart connected, every soul visible. And among them all, hers shone brightest. Ethan realized that the blind alien girl had never been blind at all. She simply saw a kind of truth no eyes could ever reach. And somehow, she had opened his as well. The morning after the battle, the colony felt hollow. Broken ships floated like ghosts in the orbiting mist, and smoke still rose from the surface. Ethan sat outside the infirmary, staring at the horizon where two suns bled into the clouds. He had fought with impossible precision last night, guided by a voice that wasn't his own. And now, that same voice echoed softly in his mind, gentle but firm. You were never alone. Lyra whispered inside his thoughts. He turned toward the door as she stepped out, wrapped in a gray cloak, her blindfold back in place. You shouldn't be walking, he said, his tone more worry than command. Lyra tilted her head, smiling faintly. You sound like someone who can finally feel. Her words made him pause. She was right. Something inside him had shifted. He no longer felt like the man who mocked weakness. He felt connected, haunted, and alive. She sat beside him quietly, listening to the wind carry the hum of distant machinery. Last night, he began slowly. I heard you inside my head. You guided me. Lyra nodded. I only followed what I could already see. He frowned. What do you mean by see? She turned her covered eyes toward him. My kind doesn't see with light. Ethan, we see with essence. He leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Essence? Yes, she whispered. Every living being leaves a trail. Emotions, memories, choices, pain. They weave together like light through water. She paused, her voice softer now. You humans shine brighter than most, but your sight blinds you to your own glow. Ethan tried to laugh, but the sound came out weak. So you're saying you can read minds? Lyra shook her head. Not minds, hearts. He felt a strange weight in his chest, as if she had reached through his words into something deeper. For a long time, he said nothing, only stared at the horizon while she spoke again. My people once guided civilizations. We helped others find peace, until they feared what we could see. She reached up, touching her blindfold lightly. So we blinded ourselves, so they would no longer fear us. Ethan sat in stunned silence. A race that had chosen blindness to protect others. It was unthinkable. Why tell me this? He asked quietly. Because you're changing, Lyra said, and change attracts danger. Her words made the air feel heavy. What danger? Lyra turned her face toward the distant sky, where broken ships glimmered faintly. The ones who attacked last night, they were not after your colony. They were after me. Ethan's jaw tightened. Why? Because they want to use what I am, she said, to weaponize what I see. The thought chilled him. You mean, turn your gift into some kind of control system? Lyra nodded slowly. They believe if they can harness emotional resonance, they can break armies without firing a single shot. Ethan stood abruptly, pacing. That's why they attacked here, to find you. Yes, she whispered, and they will return. He clenched his fists, anger mixing with guilt. He had once mocked her, laughed at her blindness, and now he realized she carried more power and more pain than he could ever imagine. What can I do? He asked. Lyra smiled faintly. You can protect what you cannot see. He didn't understand at first, but when she placed her hand gently over his chest, he felt her meaning. Protect the bond, protect the humanity within. That night, Ethan couldn't rest. Every time he closed his eyes, flashes of her memories filled his mind. Alien cities made of light, temples floating in clouds, laughter that sounded like wind. He saw her people before they blinded themselves, their eyes like stars reflecting entire galaxies. He saw their fall, the burning of worlds, and the silence that followed. And then he saw her, alone, wandering the ashes, singing the same lullaby he had once heard. He woke gasping, realizing he hadn't been dreaming. He had seen through her memory. The connection between them was growing stronger. In the morning, he found her standing by the repair bay, her face turned toward the rising suns. They're coming, she said softly. How do you know? I can feel their fear, she whispered. Fear always moves faster than light. Ethan stared into the distance, and though his eyes saw only empty skies, his heart told him she was right. He tightened his grip on his weapon. But this time, it wasn't duty or pride that drove him. It was something more. He would fight not just for survival, but for the truth she carried. And somewhere deep within him, her voice echoed once more. Your sight will soon become your burden, Ethan, but your soul will be your guide. He didn't know what it meant, not yet. But as the shadows of alien warships began to form on the horizon again, he finally understood one thing. The blind alien girl he once mocked was now the only light left to lead him through the coming darkness. The colony was preparing for war again. The metal corridors echoed with hurried footsteps, weapons clanging, and soldiers shouting orders through the haze. Ethan stood on the command platform, watching radar screens flicker with hundreds of incoming signals. The enemy fleet was larger this time, darker, hungrier. They had come not for land or fuel, but for Lyra, and she knew it. Down in the lower chamber, Lyra sat quietly among the hum of ancient machinery, her hands resting on the floor. She could feel the vibrations of the approaching ships, each throb of their engines beating like a drum in her mind. She whispered to herself, "They bring shadows, but I will bring the dawn." Her people had long abandoned the old ways, but she could still feel the echo of the power her ancestors once wielded, the power that let them see truth beyond sight. Ethan entered the chamber, his face tense, his armor scorched from earlier drills. "They're closing in fast," he said. "Command wants to evacuate the colony." Lyra shook her head. "Evacuation will only scatter the fear, and fear feeds them." He frowned. "Feeds them?" "Yes," she said calmly. "The invaders are not just conquerors. They are harvesters of emotion. They drain despair and grow stronger from pain." Ethan felt a cold chill run through him. "Then how do we fight that?" "You don't fight darkness with more darkness," she said softly. "You light a fire." She stood, her blindfold fluttering in the air as if touched by an unseen wind. Her voice carried strength that made even the humming machines quiet down. "I can amplify what I see, project the essence around me, but I will need your help." He nodded without hesitation. "Tell me what to do." She reached out and placed her hand on his chest. "Your heart is my bridge," she whispered. "You will be my eyes in the storm." As her fingers pressed against his armor, he felt a surge of warmth spreading through his body. Light pulsed beneath her skin, soft at first, then brighter, filling the dark room with golden threads that danced in the air like living rays. Suddenly, images flooded Ethan's mind. The ships above, the alien commanders plotting their strike, the fields of trapped energy they used to suppress human defenses. He gasped, overwhelmed, but Lyra's calm voice guided him through it. "Focus, Ethan, not on fear, but on what you wish to protect." He closed his eyes and thought of his home, of the people laughing under blue skies, of the innocence that war could not steal. The light around them responded, glowing stronger, wrapping both of them in a swirling sphere of radiant energy. The command center detected the surge instantly. "Cole, what the hell are you doing down there?" the officer yelled through the comm. Ethan barely heard him, his mind half in another world. Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, steady and clear. "Now, open your eyes." He obeyed, and saw through her vision. The battlefield stretched before him, not as shapes and metal, but as streams of emotion and energy. Fear pulsed red, anger glowed black, hope shimmered gold. Every soldier, every ship, every heartbeat was visible through the fabric of feeling. Lyra guided him, her voice like a thread in the storm. "Send your light to theirs. Remind them they are more than fear." Ethan lifted his hand, and golden light burst from him like fire through the comm channels, spreading across the colony network. Every soldier felt it, a warmth in their chest, a sudden clarity. The terror that once froze them now melted into courage. When the enemy ships began their assault, something unexpected happened. Their plasma bolts hit invisible barriers of glowing light. Their targeting systems failed, confusion spreading among their ranks. They had come to drain fear, but found none, only unity, only resolve. Lyra stood at the heart of it all, her body trembling, glowing brighter and brighter. Ethan could feel her strength fading, but she refused to stop. "Their darkness cannot touch those who see truth," she whispered. "Keep your eyes open, Ethan." A blinding pulse erupted from the colony. For a brief moment, the entire sky turned white. The enemy ships recoiled, systems shorting, and their fleets scattered into chaos. When the light faded, silence followed. Deep, sacred silence. The battle was over. Ethan rushed to Lyra's side. She had collapsed on the floor, her skin pale, her breath weak. "Lyra, stay with me," he said, shaking her gently. She smiled faintly, her voice barely a whisper. "You see now, don't you?" He nodded, tears burning his eyes. "Yes, I see." Her hand touched his cheek, warm and soft. "Then I can rest." Before she lost consciousness, a single tear slipped beneath her blindfold, glowing like a falling star. Ethan held her close, feeling the pulse of her energy still flickering inside him. He realized she hadn't just saved the colony. She had given him her vision, the ability to see the truth beyond what eyes could find. And deep down, he knew the war was far from over, because the universe would never stop fearing what it couldn't understand. The colony lay silent after the great burst of light, the sky above still shimmering with golden traces that refused to fade. Ethan walked through the ruins, feeling strange warmth inside his chest where Lyra's hand had rested before she collapsed. Every sound felt sharper, every breath heavier, and every heartbeat louder. He could sense emotions now, faint glowing threads connecting people around him. When a frightened engineer passed by, Ethan saw a flicker of gray trembling light near her heart. When soldiers laughed nervously, their energy glowed amber and soft. He blinked hard, trying to make it stop, but the vision stayed. Lyra's gift had not left him. It had become a part of him. He returned to the infirmary where she rested under a transparent stasis field, her body floating in gentle blue light, her face calm, as if in peaceful sleep. The medics said she was alive, but her energy was unstable. They couldn't explain the strange pulses her body emitted every few seconds. Ethan placed a hand against the glass and whispered, "You gave me your sight, didn't you?" Her lips did not move, yet he heard her voice within, soft and distant. "I only reminded you what you already had." He froze, looking around the room, but no one else reacted. The connection was still alive. Days passed, and while the colony rebuilt, Ethan felt his connection to Lyra deepen. He could sense her emotions even in her silence: calm, sorrow, hope, and something else he couldn't name. At night, he saw visions through her eyes, vast alien cities glowing like crystal oceans, beings made of pure light moving in harmony, ancient temples built among the stars. Sometimes he saw darkness too, worlds consumed by fear, armies driven mad by their own hate. Each time, he woke drenched in sweat, whispering her name. One evening, the commanding officer called him to the upper observatory. "Cole," the officer said sternly, "headquarters wants answers. They say the enemy fleet disappeared because of some phenomenon linked to you and the alien girl." Ethan hesitated. "She saved us, sir. She used something I can't explain." The officer leaned closer, his voice low. "Then explain it before someone else decides she's too dangerous to keep alive." The words struck him like a blade. He knew how military minds worked. Anything they couldn't control, they destroyed. That night, Ethan visited Lyra again, his heart heavy. "They want to take you away," he said quietly. Lyra stirred slightly, her voice echoing faintly inside his mind. "They fear what they cannot feel." "I won't let them," he said, clenching his fists. Her answer came like a whisper in the wind. "You can't fight fear with steel, Ethan. You must awaken sight in others." He didn't understand, but her words planted a seed inside his mind. The next morning, he gathered the remaining soldiers and engineers in the central dome. He didn't give orders. He simply spoke from the heart. "We won because one blind alien saw what we could not," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She saw the truth of who we are, beyond fear, beyond anger, beyond pride." They listened silently, their faces uncertain. He continued, "She showed me that courage is not in weapons or rank. It's in what you choose to see when darkness comes." Slowly, the crowd began to change. Their energy, the glowing threads he could see, shifted from gray to gold, from fear to belief. Lyra's energy pulsed brighter in the infirmary, responding to their unity. Ethan felt it through the walls, a gentle hum echoing in his bones. Her voice filled his mind again. "You're learning, Ethan. Sight is not eyes, it's heart." He smiled softly, tears in his eyes. "Then I'll teach them all." But the peace did not last. One night, alarms blared once again, this time not from space but within the colony itself. Unknown signatures appeared underground, machines burrowing toward the energy core. Ethan rushed to the control deck, scanning the feeds. The enemy hadn't fled. They had hidden, adapting, learning. Their goal was still the same: Lyra. As explosions shook the base, Ethan ran to her chamber, his vision glowing with raw energy. When he entered, she was awake, her blindfold gone, her silver eyes glowing like liquid stars. "You knew they would come," he said breathlessly. She nodded slowly. "Yes, because fear always returns for what it doesn't understand." He knelt beside her. Then we face it together. Her hand touched his, and their hearts pulsed in perfect rhythm. Outside, the floor cracked as mechanical claws tore through steel. Lyra stood, fragile but radiant, her light growing once more. Ethan looked into her shining eyes, eyes that had never seen a sunrise, yet reflected the whole universe. And for the first time in his life, he understood that her blindness had never been a weakness. It had been humanity's mirror, showing them what true sight really meant. The ground shook like a living creature beneath the colony. Alarms screamed through the halls, and red warning lights bathed everything in blood-colored glow. Ethan ran through the corridors with his pulse pounding, the soldiers behind him shouting into broken comms. The enemy had returned, not from the skies this time, but from beneath. Drilling machines tore through the lower decks, spitting sparks and molten dust, their steel claws glowing from the heat of friction. The earth itself seemed to growl as darkness climbed upward. In the central chamber, Lyra stood waiting, her body weak but her presence powerful, her silver eyes glowing behind the thin cloth that barely contained her light. She could feel every vibration, every scream of metal, every ripple of fear. "They are here," she whispered. "Their hate is thick. I can taste it." Ethan approached her, his armor cracked and covered in dust. "Then let's end this," he said, determination burning in his voice. Lyra shook her head softly. "Not with anger. Ethan, we must reach their hearts before they reach ours." He frowned. "You can't reason with monsters." Her lips curved faintly. Every monster was once something afraid. The floor split apart as a massive drilling core burst through, molten steel raining down like fire. From the hole climbed tall, skeletal machines powered by glowing cores, constructs of the invaders, driven by harvested fear. Their energy pulsed red and black, feeding on the panic that filled the air. Ethan lifted his rifle, but Lyra raised a hand. "Not yet," she whispered. "They're not alive, but they still respond to emotion." She reached toward him, her fingers trembling. "Join with me again." He hesitated, remembering the last time their connection almost burned him alive. But then he saw her eyes, calm, fearless, infinite, and he nodded. Their hands met, and instantly the air around them began to hum. Lights spilled from their skin, golden and alive, spreading through the room like a rising dawn. Ethan's vision blurred as he saw the emotional currents once more, rivers of fear twisting like snakes around the machines. Lyra's voice echoed through his mind. "Now, turn their fear into stillness." He focused, breathing deep, sending waves of calm through the golden light. The red pulses around the machines faltered, flickering uncertainly. The constructs staggered, their movements slowing, confused. But more of them crawled from the tunnels, hundreds, then thousands, surrounding the chamber like a mechanical storm. Lyra gasped, the energy burning through her fragile body. "Too many," she whispered, her knees trembling. Ethan caught her before she fell, holding her close. "I'll carry it," he said. "You're not alone this time." He closed his eyes, letting the connection deepen until his heartbeat matched hers. Suddenly, the golden light exploded outward, filling the entire cavern. Through his mind, he saw everything. The soldiers above, the machines below, the terror in every living soul. And beyond that, the faint thread that connected even the enemy's consciousness. He pushed warmth into it, pushing light into darkness, not as an attack, but as an embrace. Lyra's voice guided him, steady and brave. "Show them what humanity feels when it loves, when it forgives." The machines began to falter, their red cores dimming. One by one they dropped their weapons, their lights turning from crimson to silver. The underground tremor began to fade as the drills slowed and died. In the silence that followed, Ethan felt tears roll down his face. He didn't understand how, but he felt them surrender, not to power, but to peace. Lyra collapsed against him, her glow flickering weakly. "You did it," he whispered. She shook her head slowly. "We did it, but it cost me more than I can give." He tightened his hold. "Don't say that." Her hand rose to his cheek, her touch faint as mist. "You carry my sight now. Ethan, your eyes will guide what I can no longer see." He felt her light sink deeper into his chest, merging with his heartbeat. The chamber fell quiet except for the hum of dying machines and the distant echo of wind through broken walls. The soldiers above found him hours later, standing amidst the ruins, holding her limp body in his arms. To them, it looked like grief, but Ethan knew better. He could still feel her presence within him, faint but steady, a whisper of light woven into his soul. As the suns rose again over the scarred colony, he looked toward the horizon where the darkness had come from. And for the first time, he didn't see danger. He saw connection, the same threads Lyra once spoke of, stretching endlessly through space, linking all hearts. Her voice echoed softly inside him one last time. Remember, Ethan, blindness is only forgetting where to look. He smiled through his tears, raising his eyes to the golden sky. And somewhere far beyond it, he felt her watching still, seeing for him, guiding him toward the final truth that awaited. The war was over, but peace did not come easily. The colony was a scarred monument of what had been lost and what had been reborn. The invaders had fled, their machines silent, their shadows gone. Yet Ethan Cole remained, standing among the ruins, carrying a light that was no longer his own. Every day, he felt Lyra's presence inside him, faint but alive. When the wind brushed his face, he could almost hear her hum the melody she used to sing in the repair bay. When people spoke around him, he no longer saw faces. He saw colors, waves of feeling that danced like auroras around every soul. He had become something in between, not human, not alien, but a bridge. The commanders tried to question him, to understand what had happened. They wanted to study him, measure the energy that now flowed through his veins. But Ethan refused. This isn't a weapon, he told them. It's sight. They didn't understand, and perhaps they never would. Weeks turned to months, and news spread across the human colonies of the soldier who saw without eyes, the man who ended a war with light instead of bullets. Many came to see him, to ask about the alien girl who had changed everything. Ethan never called her a savior, never a goddess. He simply said, "She showed me what I already was." One evening, he returned to the same place where it had all begun, the old repair bay, now quiet and half buried in dust. He walked among the broken tools, the faded marks on the walls, and the smell of oil still lingering like a ghost of the past. There, he sat where she once sat, his hands tracing the cold floor where she had worked. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Lyra, can you still hear me?" At first, there was only silence, but then, a soft voice, distant, gentle, filled with warmth. "I never stopped hearing you." Her voice flowed through him like sunlight. "You kept your promise," she said. "You showed them the light." He smiled, his eyes wet. "No, Lyra, you did." "No," she whispered. "We did." Ethan looked up at the cracked ceiling where the stars peeked through the gaps. He could see their glow, but more than that, he could feel their emotions, their stories, their connections. Every star was a living thread in a vast fabric that joined all things together. And in that fabric, he felt her presence, shining brighter than any sun. As he sat there, a soft blue light began to form around him. People gathered outside, seeing the glow rise from the old building. They watched as Ethan stepped out into the night, his body surrounded by golden streams of energy. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the stars. He looked to the horizon and said, "It's time." He walked toward the launch bay, where an old shuttle waited, rebuilt from the wreckage of the war. He had renamed it the Lyra. Its hull shimmered with faint symbols of both human and alien design, carved together as a sign of unity. When the engines roared to life, the colony fell silent, every man, woman, and child watching as the ship lifted into the heavens. Ethan's voice echoed across the comms one last time, calm and filled with hope. If she could see through blindness, then so can we. If she could forgive fear, then so can humanity. The shuttle rose higher, breaking through the clouds, disappearing into the sea of stars. Inside the cockpit, Ethan sat quietly, the console lights reflecting off his face. Through the window, the galaxy spread before him, endless and alive. And from within his mind, Lyra's voice whispered once more, "Do you see it now?" He smiled softly. "Yes, Lyra, I see it all." As the ship vanished into the golden mist of a distant nebula, the sky above the colony shimmered. A wave of light spread across the stars, as if the universe itself took a breath. For the first time in history, human and alien hearts pulsed in the same rhythm, not through sight or sound, but through understanding. And somewhere, far beyond the limits of time and vision, Lyra's laughter echoed, light and free. For she had never truly been blind. And the man who once mocked her had become her vision, her legacy, her voice among the stars. The galaxy would remember them both, not as warrior and alien, but as two souls who saw the unseen, and taught the universe that the greatest light is born from those who were once blind.